Oh, thanks a lot. Very exciting to be here. Thanks for having me. It's generally considered in the speaking circuit. You know, being last is considered sort of the headliner, and especially they say in the industry like 8-hour mental health conferences, like the last 15 minutes is considered the sweet, absolute sweet spot. So I'm pumped. This is for me. This is like I'm on the main stage. This is like Glastonbury, kind of Glastonbury crossed with, I don't know, sort of a Centrelink waiting room kind of vibe, but pumped. No, actually, it sort of reminds me. This formal setting reminds me a little bit of my 21st, but you all came, so must have forgot to send out the invites. But I thought we should just take a moment to acknowledge, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but this hotel was actually built around a naturally occurring geological formation. So if you haven't just witnessed the marvel that is these naturally occurring sort of growths of pink Himalayan salt that's clustered in the roof, it's actually one of the wonders of Victoria. So if you sort of drift off during any of my speech, please just stare at the pillars of salt on the roof. Everything will be okay, guys. Trust me. I'm really enamored with what I've seen here today. I think call of the conference I'm awarding to Jason Skyless. He was just here with the young persons panel, which being the age I am, fantastic, Jason. Jason and I haven't even met, but we're like both, child carers of a mum with schizophrenia. So it's like, when do you rock up to a conference and hear someone speaking from like that narrower description of your own experience? And Jason at one point said, having a mum with mental illness is like having a child you didn't choose to have. And I'm just going to give that the space it deserves. Well done, Jason. And also just in the Imaginarium, they've got a mental illness board game, for goodness sake, called Lemon Lunas. And my recommendation to Mental Health Victoria would be to, it's from 1997. I would get those back in production because that looks fantastic. One of the square, you roll onto a certain square and it says, I quote, "Someone at last tells you that there have been some things in your life for which you are not responsible. Gain 2 status cards." Lemon Lunas. Go check it out, please. It's incredible. So I'm really excited up here. And look, we didn't have things like this when I was growing up. In the 80s and 90s in Tasmania, there weren't any names for things or terms or political correctness or support. There was just, honestly, there was just feelings. It was a feelings-based economy. And I wasn't a carer. I was just my mum's son. And mum was beautiful when she was well, but, when she wasn't well. She was sweet-natured, softly spoken, funny, gentle. My mum was she trained to be a mothercraft nurse in the 70s. So my mum actually went to school to learn how to be a good mum. I mean, how lucky was I? But after a few bad sleeps, she'd start acting vague, and then the alien weather system would roll in. And it's funny, I was remembering a show from my childhood on TV called You Can't Do That on Television. It was like a gross out kids sketch show, and Alanis Morissette was on it. And whenever anyone said, "I don't know," they got green slime poured on their heads. It was good value. But I remember I was homesick from school one day and I was watching it, and they had an opposite sketch. And it was like the kid in bed really wanted to go to school, and his mum went, no, Timmy, you can't go to school. You have to stay in bed and play video games. And he's like, "Oh, Mum." And I always think about that sketch because it's like, oh yeah, that's a hilarious opposites day at home. But then at home, I think most days were like opposite. I was living opposites day, and I'd be kind of nagging Mum to get off the bed and cook tea, and she'd be like, so I don't know. It's funny when most of the world is portraying this idea of a normal, and you're just living in sort of Stranger Things upside down world as per normal, and you just have to get with the program. And sort of, everyone else has got their normal world low stakes problems that they come at you with. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's good. It's not a real problem. But anyway, and you've got actual, World War III going on at home with your mum having an episode, but I just kept my whole childhood secret and didn't really tell anybody. And so, I don't know, it's interesting in this current climate where everyone's sort of talking about unprecedented events and, there's these emergencies and crises, but we're like all experiencing it together. It's a little bit taking a bit of catching up, to be honest. And I was talking to my friend who lives in Nowra, and he's just bought a house, and he was trying to explain what 3 days of constant rain feels like. And he's like, it's just creeping into the house and there's damp coming in one room. And I went outside and the light bulb was filled with water, and it's like gravity was catching up and water was just infiltrating every space in the house. And it was really weird listening to him because I was going, oh, I sort of relate to that. You've got a problem sort of on par with having a mum with schizophrenia. And I started thinking about my mum was like a severe weather event. Forget man in the moon. I had like mum in the moon. Clouds over her eyes, a storm in her mouth, crack of thunder between her teeth, the strange wind of her voice, whispering in the wrong direction, laughing at nothing, the lightning of her rage, sparking fires around the house, only to be doused by the flooding of her sadness, the water level slowly creeping up to my neck. And then in the breaks, we'd both shelter from the cyclone, and she'd present me with tea or remember to ask me how school was. I guess my mum spent a lot of her time in a low depression. That was her weather system, and that created a high pressure system in my head. So my mum's mood really did work in seasons. It was sort of a 2.5 month cycle. Mum went away, mum came back, mum went away, mum came back. I didn't go anywhere. I just went to school with mum's mist sort of trailing the school bus, maybe a bit of fog coming out of my lunchbox. I went to school and home and hell and back. I just made a camp inside disaster. I tried to have fun. I tried to be a kid. That's what kids are really good at. They're just getting on with the business of being a kid. I know I should be doing something. Mum's on the bed. I think I'm going to go play. Yeah, I'm going to go bounce on the trampoline. I went to Nan and Pop's on the weekend, and that's where I craved some normality and the real weather of bushwalks and beach trips and barbecues. And then at the end of every Sunday, Nan would bundle me into the back seat and send me back into battle. You're a man now, Justin. You make sure she's taking them tablets. Well, yeah, Pop was really into the weather, and I've never seen someone get so excited about a frost as my Pop in Wynyard in Tasmania. Oh, looks like a good frost out there this morning. He's a spud farmer from way back. I think frosts are good for the Swedes or the spuds or something. My 12-year-old eyes just saw a sort of, it looked like the liquid nitrogen scene from Terminator 2, and all the grass was frozen. But Pop had like a rain gauge and a little plastic wood chopper measuring the wind. But I was measuring my own weather, just like Pop. I was measuring my mum's weather. But when I was 7, I've got this memory of reading my Sesame Street book, and Mum was crying in her bedroom next door to mine, and I had a red texter, and I was doing little spirals, and I was measuring the volume of her crying. And when it'd go quiet, they'd be small spirals, and when it'd get louder, they'd be bigger. That was my life. And then at 12, I was basically like a cross between Astro Boy and Casper the Friendly Ghost and Tony Gregg's Weather Watch from the cricket. I was just like little dials and aerials and scanners and information. And I'd come home from school and knock on the door. And if Mum took too long to open the door, I'd be like, oh, well, mum's sick again. In conclusion, mental illness is notoriously hard to grasp. For those who haven't lived it, it's just too abstract. And for those that have, they're usually too traumatized and exhausted to share. It's created a perfect storm of silence. I mean, the pandemic and climate change, they're all out in the open. Like, where's our Ben Lee song? Why aren't we all in schizophrenia together? The antidote to this silence and fear is art. So if you want to know how I coped and how I got through it and all that stuff and things, well, you should really buy my book, Get Up Mum. It's $24.95 from booktopia.com. I'm running a business here. Come on, guys. The first one's free. So, but really art was my woolly jumper, it was my umbrella, it was my sunscreen and what have you. You know, Pop had his plastic wood chopper measuring the wind. I had my plastic pick strumming the guitar. Pop had his little barometer that he'd tap and the needle would go that way. And I had my pen tip riding up a storm. Art is really great. And I just want to plug art and make sure art gets its props, because it's about the only thing that brings light to dark days for a lot of us. And it puts color to truth, and it clears the airwaves so that your voice can take flight. Art is the perfect match for mental illness. It's abstract, it's from the heart, and it's free. So you won't save the world with information, but you might save it with communication and imagination. Go check out the Imaginarium, very cool. I gave a witness statement to the Royal Commission, and it's been a pretty incredible trip to go from having a secret childhood that I didn't tell anybody about to, like, you know, giving an official statement. And then that led to Satellite Foundation, maybe getting some funding, and I'm an ambassador for them. And just imagine what that's like. I mean, I'm so excited to be here because I've just spent a lot of my life being secretly miserable and extremely alienated. And it's kind of cool to be alienated and angry when you're 25. Like, that's kind of a bit punk and a bit sexy, but I'm rapidly approaching that age where it just gets a bit sad. So I'm really enjoying the timing, how this is working out. And look, for some of us, it's still raining inside and there's very bizarre weather patterns around us, and there's a crowded house, and we always take the weather with us. And there's definitely 4 seasons in one day. But look, if you unlock some sunshine from all the goodwill that you've got gathered here today, then surely that might create a rainbow that we can all take away in our hearts, y'all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Justin. What a great way to end.